Good afternoon and welcome on a rainy Tuesday. I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday's good weather because it is gone. I can tell you that. At least it's gone here in Berea. Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio. Nathan Zgura, Bo Bishop, who's out there, who knows, could be in floodwaters. We're hoping to have him call in on the hotline, not able to get into the building due to the torrential nature of the downpour outside. And it was wild. As I drove in here today, I saw the gray, and I mean dark gray, slate sky that was just moving from the west towards us. And when I got here today, it was 100% sunshine. People were eating outside, having lunch. By the time that we got to air, and there's Bo, he's braved it. What a human being. Maybe it looks like it's lightened up just a little bit, but there was a while here where it was complete torrential downpour, hail. You could hear it throughout the facility, on the roof, hail, leaks, all of it, because it was a deluge. It was as crazy as can be. And here comes the great Bo Bishop now, making it through. Wow. How'd your boat do out there? I mean, it's a tough scenario, my friend.
Yeah, grapple. I think it was grapple.
Yeah.
I ran.
You did, obviously. You look good. Did you just decide, hey, I'm going to park over here closer? I hope you did that.
I didn't.
You should have.
I didn't do that. I was concerned about, those are reserved spots for luminaries such as yourself. My concern.
I only recently got one of those spots, which I'm very happy about.
Well, you have one.
Yeah, thank you.
My fear was that somebody else. Too bad I don't have a light.
Yeah, if you had a light, you'd known.
Then I would have known. My fear was that if I did that, someone whose spot it was would come in, and then I got to deal with Jay. Jay would be upset. I don't want Jay upset.
No, we don't want Jay upset.
Jay
will take you to the railroad station.
I don't want that.
No, you won't want that at all.
I
will say it is
the best I could. It's calmed a little.
Compare 5 minutes ago.
5 minutes ago is biblical.
Yes.
It was pure downpour and then hail. I'm a little concerned about damage to vehicle.
I hope mine survived. I don't know. You could hear it just walking in here because there are many skylights.
Sure.
And it sounded insane. Yeah.
It was 73 degrees when I left home.
When I got here.
73 and sunny.
When I got here, which was a little while ago.
Sure.
It was 75 and sunny. People were outside eating lunch.
Yeah. And now,
outside. And then they had to pack up and run. Now, there were signs. I'm sure as you drove here, you saw in the distance ahead of you, I called it slate gray sky, where you knew, okay, the storm is coming.
Yeah, it was very obvious as I was making my way across 80 that's what I was going to be driving into. But I got all the way here. It was truly not until I got to Berea that it hit.
It only started raining.
It's Berea Mid-Park High School here. Right when I turned, it was like I was turning into hell.
Yeah. It's only been raining here for 10, 15 minutes, and clearly you can actually see the sky again. So maybe it's just a passing cell.
What are we in for here? Does anybody have a Doppler up?
It's going to rain all night tonight.
But it wasn't starting now. It's on.
It wasn't supposed to rain until 5 is what I thought, and then clearly
let me pull up an
not. Nay.
The Doppler doesn't look promising.
All right. So yeah, it's 84, 82, 89.
Back in
hourly
our neck of the woods,
stuck.
It starts at 4 o'clock.
But okay.
Because it's moving east, I guess. Wow. Yeah, that was wild. I told at the open, I said I hope people enjoyed yesterday because it's over.
I was thinking about this morning,
and I did enjoy yesterday.
Should we? How schools have snow days. Should Ohioans?
Yes, I already know. Yes, 100%.
Should they have Sundays?
Yes.
Not Sunday. Sun days.
Space days.
And when you see a good one, it's a get out of jail. No conversation about it. Just look, boss, I'm using one of my 5 Sundays.
January, February, March. Anytime.
April sucks. Give them April.
If you get sliding scales. January, if you get 65 and sunny or up,
I think
that'd
60
even
and
go.
sunny,
Okay,
yeah.
60 and sunny, pure sun, Jan or Feb. March, I think, when you hit a 70-day in March with sun, like yesterday, nobody should have been working. There's been no commerce.
70 and sun on March.
And then
I think
April probably
would
same.
Probably be the same,
Yeah.
70 and sun.
Yeah.
I don't want to put a 70 on it, though, because I take a 65 in sun sometimes,
Fine.
too. Like, I think I'd take that, too. But I think in those months, Ohioans should have up to, I'm willing to go as high as 5. I think that feels like the sweet spot. 5 get-out-of-jail-free cards.
Fine.
And Boston, you just got to deal with it. It's fine. Oh, I get it. It's a Sunday. Live.
Live.
We'll be fine. We'll deal with it tomorrow. There's nothing that's that important.
There's so many little tweaks that you could make that would just benefit everybody.
I got another one.
That's one for you. Oh, good.
I got another one. Spring break in Ohio, first week of March.
Yeah, get everybody out. And then you're not on everybody else's
And you're not
spring
everyone's
break.
calendar. You're not getting crushed with the ticketing,
Yeah, the rates.
the rates, the flights, the hotels. All of that's more manageable.
I agree. I like all of those things. By the way, watch Curb last night, and I think because you had kind of like set it up for me to be more down,
It's a great episode. I'm
was a
not
great
suggesting it's not a great episode. It was just hard.
The
to
Lewis
not-
stuff.
the Richie stuff, because he was so prominent that I found myself when
he
I would
looked-
see him, it was distracting because
And
I
he
know
looked
that he had just
terrible.
passed and
And
he
he-
looked tough.
his eyes looked crazy.
Yeah,
But I like that he did a stand-up set at the AA meeting, and it
Yeah.
killed.
yeah, and I'm
A
guessing
lot
that
of laughs.
he crushed it. That's
Yeah,
his new
lot of
bit.
laughs.
Like he
Yeah,
goes and does
yeah.
the LA thing. People forget with Richie Lewis, and you and I didn't get a chance to talk to it because you were had already pushed off from Indy at that point with his passing. He was an enormous stand-up in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, and I want to say
Yeah.
like sold out Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and
Like
From
that
Hell
type
was one
thing.
of his big bits, and he's in the quotable quote books or whatever. He invented that.
Yeah,
The the bartender from hell. That's what he was doing at the AA
that
meeting.
was the deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
So he was an all-time stand-up comedian and
dark humor.
very. Also an Ohio State Buckeye. Very proud of that. And yeah. So I want to rewatch it because for me it was just seeing him, and then I wasn't prepared for him to be so prominent
Yeah.
that I found it to be a little distracting from the humor.
There was an in memoriam
Was
at
it
the beginning. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so I expected him to be kind of in main threads throughout. So I was pleasantly surprised that it was kind of limited to what he did in the meeting. But yes, he was certainly, it was a scene for him, period. I thought it was a tremendous episode.
Well, since they've been back to L.A., they've all been heaters. I mean,
Freddie
Freddie Funkhauser is throwing 190.
So do you ever listen to Conan O'Brien's podcast?
No.
So Conan does a podcast. It's actually very successful. Sold it for a ton of money, which is
Okay.
great for
Kind of
him.
what people are doing, yeah.
And he had...
Yeah, he was barely getting by on all that money NBC was paying him to double dip through those years. So it's good that he catches a break.
Yeah, but he got that because of a hugely uncool and embarrassing way in which
It
he
was.
lost, but he was compensated
He
for
was
it.
compensated, but remember, he then parlayed what happened to him there into that astronomical gig at Turner.
Yep.
That fell flat. And I used to really like his show.
Loved his show.
I thought he was very, very funny. I thought the whole bit was funny. But yeah, he gets the Tonight Show. Then Leno's like, actually, I don't want to not do the Tonight Show. So
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it at 10. I'm going to do the Tonight Show because they did it at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
He did an hour. What was it? He did an
Whatever
hour.
he did.
Instead of doing an hour, I think Leno did like a half hour. Is that what it was? From like 11:30 to midnight. And then Conan had to do they wanted Conan to do like midnight and he's like, wait, what? That's not the Tonight Show. But Leno didn't want to give up the Tonight Show. And Conan wasn't rating the way Leno always rated. To be fair, he did. I was always a Letterman guy, but
Same.
But he rated, and then he wanted that gig back, and then they pulled Conan off, and so then he double dipped with Tonight Show money, and then he got the astronomical money at Turner.
Yep.
So that
And now he's got some more with
that
his
stuck,
pod.
yeah.
But on his pod, he had Larry on, and one of the things he asked Larry was, how do you balance somebody who's really famous that comes in and either plays themselves, as you have many people.
So this is a great question. We've discussed this, you and I.
Or you get him to play somebody else, because Vince Vaughn is way too big of a star not to just be Vince Vaughn on the show.
Yes.
And yet he was like, I needed somebody in the Funkhauser world. The original speech that he gave, that Freddie Funkhauser gives, his kind of like debut scene, was actually supposed to be given by the Funk Man, but the Funk Man passed.
Yes.
So he needed it to be someone in the Funkhauser family, and he thought Vince would be perfect for it, and Vince was game. And then as soon as we did it, it was magic. And like, of course, he was Freddie Funkhauser.
Yeah.
But he said it was so cool because Vince Vaughn is so big that he could be like, no, I'm only being me.
Yeah.
But he was pumped to be Freddie Funkhauser, and he killed it.
Yes.
That poor stuck fish.
Stuck. I mean, clearly was stuck. Larry's right on most things.
The Disney was unbelievable.
That was unbelievable.
This was a great episode.
It really was. Yeah. I'll watch it again.
The hate brick. Actually, I just think it's a strong I think that's just strong dislike.
Strong
speech.
dislike.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It was just for me because I wasn't prepared for how much Richie. It's interesting that he told that about Vaughn because like Elizabeth Shue played a character. She's won an Academy Award, and it's like
certain people want to play characters.
Oh, they don't want
he said
to
don't
be.
Want to be themselves, and then some people do enjoy being
like
themselves
exaggerated
in
version.
the world, right? Like Ted.
Danson is just loving being an exaggerated version of himself.
He was
amazing.
Great in this one.
He was spectacular.
So subtle, so good.
So good. Yes, he was so good.
And apparently, I was reading a review, a lot of callbacks. There was another one where there was a callback on Seinfeld. They had a fight over a pen, and so that was a callback, the pen being exchanged there. There were a bunch of callbacks in this episode of various things that had either been in Curb or not. I was trying to remember what I was saying.
They're very much headed towards a Seinfeld finish with LD having to do jail time.
But he's already been in jail this season.
I understand, but I think he's going to have to go serve more jail in Atlanta, and I think it's going to be him sticking it to people who didn't like the Seinfeld finale because he came back to write it. It's been a bit that he doesn't like that people don't like it because he thinks the finale's great.
On Conan.
Yeah. So like
pissed about it.
He's been bothered about it. I think he's going to finish Curb the same way he finished Seinfeld, right back in the jail, like how he finished Seinfeld.
The difference is there's no way that they can have people testify against him like they did in Seinfeld.
No, that was
because he's on trial for a very specific crime, and his character is really not up for debate in this particular crime.
But they were in Seinfeld for like laughing at an overweight kid, right? That was the bit.
Yeah, and then it was like all the people everybody who'd ever been on the show ran them down for being creds.
Yeah, Jackie Childs couldn't even win it. Although he won in the end.
He did.
Yeah, because he gets little Terry Hatcher in her prime for Jackie Childs. Did well.
Did it not bad at all.
We've got some news of the day. The Browns offensive assistant Jonathan DeCoster. I don't know Jonathan. I don't know Jonathan.
I saw him walking around yesterday, and obviously he had some stuff with him, and clearly that was stuff.
Yeah.
On the way up. Congrats to him, though, for getting
Gators, huh?
The Florida Gators, yeah.
There you go. And Brugler's latest mock has the Browns selecting Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall in the second round. ESPN's Jordan Reed has us selecting Malachi Corley.
We've got to go.
So it has us going wide receiver.
We've got to go through these mocks. I think there'll be some interesting stuff in them just in general for people. But yeah. So Malachi Corley, that's Uno's guy. He's like Deebo Samuel, right?
Yes.
So that's it. We're going to draft Deebo Samuel in the second round.
I would love to have Deebo Samuel.
Same.
I just think when I think of maybe you draft him and then you add
you need
we need that. And maybe some size. Some size never hurt anybody.
Would agree. Yeah, big target down the sideline.
I'm curious to see where some of these other receivers went in these mocks.
Speaking of receivers, you had your debut.
I did.
In the flag last night. Uno, give me your pregame. How were you? Were you nervous? Were you jittery? Were you bouncy? How'd you get the energy out of you? You strike me as like someone who'd be bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, I was a little nervous. Shout out to our captain, Corey. He kind of saw me a little nervous, just threw me a couple light passes before the game.
Oh, my gosh.
Kind of just worked through some drills. It was good to,
nice
just
soft warm-up.
Catch the ball.
A little soft toss.
From the quarterback.
Soft toss.
Helped me out a little bit. Shout out to Griff. He came
What was Griff involved? Is it just moral support?
Griff was throwing me some routes.
Why did he not play?
I don't know why he didn't play. It makes me really sad. But
Does he have an answer for it?
Griff? He does not have an answer.
It smells like something's burning.
Yeah, the last time we did this,
I
people
also
thought
smell
you
that.
and I were having a heart attack. Do you remember this, or a stroke?
Yeah, and then remember the thing went zzz,
Yeah.
and it shocked you. But
Every time we have the biblical rain, we get that smell, and people go, "You guys are having a stroke." No, we're not. We're not having a stroke.
something smells like smoke in here,
Yeah, there is.
like intensely.
I'm sure we'll be fine.
We smell it too.
Yeah,
You
you
smell
guys
it
got
too?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
So we can't all four be having a stroke. It feels like a electrical fire is what it smells like to me.
Yeah, whatever it smells
Like
like.
if we see people running,
We need to run.
then we need to run at that point.
Yeah, then
For right now, I think
Right
we're
now,
okay. I think we could be okay.
people are smiling out there. They
All
don't
right.
look like they're running.
No, they're not. Did you get a dub?
We did. Big
Oh,
win.
what
for
was
the
the
team.
score?
It was 71-24. Or
Oh my
25.
God!
I don't
Are you
remember
not?
what they had?
Are you not a little ashamed at running it up like that, or is that how this game is? You can't run the ball a little bit and
No, you can't.
There's
run.
no running.
you just got to
really,
spin it, and just dominate people.
Yeah,
to
you
the
kinda-
point of embarrassment.
You kind of have to throw.
We had
So
plenty
it's
games like that. in
Really
my
no
day.
choice but to just
71-24,
keep scoring.
just bury them.
Yeah.
Poor people. Like what were their?
So he said they've got.
Were they morally broken? The opposition
It did feel like they were just a little bit tired near the end of the game and just
of
kind of
just getting
over it.
run up on.
Yeah.
Corey can sling it
Yeah.
elitely. They had. You said you had a kid who played at Mountain Union.
Yeah, he played like outside linebacker
That's
at
sold.
Mount Union.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good. And then Amon and Riley, we talked about, are both excellent, and that's
That's all you need.
you're
You're only playing 6.
yeah. Uno, 2 for 54, 27 yards a catch, 2 touchdowns. All he does is catch it. All he does.
That's what we need is Uno. We need an Uno on
We
this
need
team.
Uno.
2 for 27 yards a completion, couple of scores,
Yeah, and a
big
2-point
play threat,
conversion.
and a 2-pointer. Nice fantasy day for you.
Yeah, little octopus to start the game. Touchdown and a 2-point.
Oh my gosh, right out of the gates.
Yeah.
So you finished from a fantasy standpoint. You're talking about 12, 14. That's a pretty good week.
19.4 and a PPR 21.4. Solid.
Good job out of you, Uno. Do you guys feel like coming out of it was the feeling that you guys are a team to be of consequence, and are you the favorites? I'm going to go to you're the official scout of the league. You've looked at these rosters.
I have not
You poured over
but
them.
My guess is
Studied them.
There's only 6 teams, so we
Yeah.
know that they're at worst they're team 5. The other game ended in like 27-21, so I'm going to put them ahead of both of those teams.
Now all of a sudden they're in the top 3.
It
At
feels
minimum.
like we've got a better offense than all of the other teams that we've seen so
That's
far.
really all.
That's
that
how
matters.
it was for us. Like until you run into like an Andrew Berry. Is Dave Giuliani playing?
I didn't see his name. So
Okay,
we were
he
playing
was
against
another.
we played
He was
against
like Christian
Nemo
McCaffrey
Washington,
of our-
who was on our coaching staff. I think he's in the Bill Willis
Okay.
coaching thing. He was the quarterback for the other team.
Okay.
and not great.
Not if they only scored 24.
I don't think he was
3
the
scores.
problem for his team. I think it was just they couldn't defend our offense.
Well, they also
Yeah,
couldn't
but you
score.
couldn't score.
They
You should score,
They
like,
should have scored 50 or
The
40.
good games are score, and you just you win based on 2-point conversions,
That's it.
female scores, and if like you happen to get one stop, but you're really trying to just figure out how do I have the ball last
Yes.
to make sure I can score. But there shouldn't be much defense.
Even in my post college, whether I was in Montana or in Tallahassee, when I would play like City League flag football, I know you played in Atlanta as well. When you do that, like it's all 2-point conversions.
Yes.
That's it, because everyone scores.
Yeah.
Everyone scores. It's just, do you get a stop on the 2-pointers? That's where the game.
That's where
flips.
it's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
That's good. 71-24.
It's a good start. By the way, yesterday it was great. Left here, able to go get out on the links for a little bit. No greens, so it was temps, but just to get out there and hit the
I drove
golf
by
ball
your
was
place
great.
on Sunday. What the heck was I doing Sunday? I can't even remember. Oh,
Walden
lacrosse
does have the
practice.
greens open, but
Oh, you weren't there.
nobody
Okay.
wanted to meet me out there.
Oh yeah, I zipped by there and there were people playing. It was great. They
Yeah.
had it was cart path only, but no big deal. Zip it along. Bless you.
Yesterday, people
Yeah.
were in carts.
On Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah.
Sunday.
You
they
might
were
have seen the
cart paths.
kid. The kid was there. Novak was there.
Yeah, there were some people out there getting
The
it done.
cook. Yeah, all my boys were.
Yeah,
out
there was a
on Sunday.
great many of them people out there playing a little bit on Sunday. So yeah, you got to. That's the Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. That's a win. That's
By the way,
5 of them. Now it's kind of okay. I think. I don't know.
I don't think it's raining anymore.
No,
It was a 10-minute stretch of.
it was biblical,
Insanity.
man. I mean, it was like Caddyshack.
I mean, I called you to say don't even get out of
You
your
did.
car.
I called you. I'm like, dude, I don't think I can get in there.
Yeah.
And then it started hailing. I'm like, I'm definitely not getting out here.
I said, don't get
And
out
it
of your
broke,
car.
And then I'm like, so then I thought, well, maybe I'll call in. I said that I'll call in.
Yeah, that's what we thought.
And then it kind of broke, and I thought,
I'm
make
gonna
a run.
make a run for it.
Let's make a run. So I dutched and dodged, and away you go. Hey,
Five
did you
Ds
see?
of dodgeball?
You are not the Roadhouse fan I am, right?
Correct.
But you've seen it,
Yes.
but not to the extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dalton.
Yeah. Dalton. They did it. They did it on Rewatchables. God
Oh,
bless
that's what they did this
them.
week.
And Kyle's back,
So
so that's a home run. I mean, like, it's
they're very
the
good.
Podfather, Chris, and
Did you hear Larry tell Simmons about how he likes the rewatchables, but he wants them to announce ahead of time so that he has time to then watch the movie and then do it? And Simmons was like, once you know what it is, watch the movie and then listen. He said, no, I want to listen to it right when it drops. So say, hey, we're dropping Roadhouse on Monday, so I have
watch
a week.
It Sunday.
I have a week to watch it.
I think it's a great idea. I've always wondered why they don't do that. Although, obviously, when it comes to that genre, the podcast
Simmons
world,
thinks to like it.
Simmons just crushes that
He likes
world.
to think of the surprise of it.
I think there is something too. Oh my gosh, they did this. I think his attitude is, it's the rewatchables. You've all seen all of these things.
Yeah.
So, you don't need to watch Roadhouse to listen to it. You've already watched it 1,000 times.
But I do think it's one of those things like if
right.
If he announced it a week out, you're still getting the excitement at that moment.
Yeah. So the reason that I stumbled onto Roadhouse was I stumbled onto Caddyshack because of the biblical rain and hail and all of that stuff. The
best round of the Bishop's life.
Probably the first 20 times I saw Caddyshack, and probably the first 50 times I saw Roadhouse was on cable. Yeah. So I was unaware,
quite a different experience,
probably until college, that those two movies were rated R for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea.
Which have you seen more?
Oh, Roadhouse by far. Yeah, not close. I've seen Roadhouse. Oh my God. Probably. I mean, that's definitely a top 5 most movie I've seen the most in my life.
Caddyshack's top 3 for me, for sure.
Yeah. I've seen Caddyshack a lot.
I watch it every year on my birthday.
Not like Roadhouse.
Every year.
Yeah. I just watched Caddyshack. It was on this weekend. I still like to flip. If I see it on, then I'm watching for 10 minutes in the third quarter of a boring college game.
I was talking to the cook, and he was like, telling me about some show I need to watch called Hightown, which I will.
Where would that be?
He's like, it's 1520 on DirecTV. I go, I cut the cord, cook. I live in the 2020s.
Me and the cook are the same.
Yeah, you guys are the same. Speaking of another cook.
There's Mr. Cook himself right there. What's he got? Got a little water?
A little water,
little coffee?
Yeah.
I like it.
Hydrate
it. That's right. Yeah. No, I still like to, when the sport is on and it's in a little bit of a lull, let's poke around and see what's on elsewhere. And we'll watch this for 15 minutes. I don't have to stick, but I get a couple of scenes. I come back in for the end of the game.
Yeah.
That's my win. That's still a win for me. Can you do that with the cable cutting?
I mean, you can jump around. Sure.
But you can't. Can you bounce around?
Yeah, you can bounce around.
A little bit?
You can bounce around on YouTube TV. Easy.
Can you?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe
it's got all the channels listed, and then you just go, oh, this one. Oh, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go back here. I mean, the best is in football season, you have the unbelievable multi-view boxes.
4 box.
Yeah. You get 4, and then if you click on it, it goes right into that game big, and then you click out of it, it goes right back to the 4. You can switch which one you're getting the audio from. It's a real delight.
The level of which I'm a proponent of cable, I feel like I should have free cable from the cable company for as much of a proponent as I am of it.
You're going to be one of the last.
Me and like all of the flyover states, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Everybody else is on to other things. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
And joyously so.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Those are your hot topics of the day. They're presented by Vivid Seats, official fan experience partner of your Cleveland Browns. We do have a lot of news in the NFL. We will get to that as the show goes along. Andrew Berry's presser from last week over at the Combine. We will have that for you. We are off and running on a Tuesday. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Are you tired about worrying about your roof and siding? Get peace of mind by upgrading with Renew Home Exteriors. The Renew Home Exteriors lifetime warranty roofing and siding products offer durability and protection that you can trust. And the best part, with no money down and no payments or interest for 24 months, improving your home has never been easier. Mention ESPN, receive $2,000 off your upgrade. $2,000 off, man. Just mention ESPN. It's that simple. Enjoy peace of mind with a new roof or siding. Renew Home Exteriors, superior products and superior service. Visit RenewEstimate.com to book today. Some news in the league, around the league. The Broncos have formally released quarterback Russell Wilson. You and I were talking about this off air yesterday after we were done. Sean Payton said they were going to do this last week.
Yeah.
On Tuesday he said it. Monday or Tuesday it's Tuesday he said it. 1 week later they did it.
They most certainly did. He said he said that's what we're going to do.
And they did
it. I mean, there are two ways you can go at the NFL Combine. You can say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
For certain things that you have control of that don't give you a competitive disadvantage to say, like this. Or you can say nothing and lie through your teeth. And some teams advocate to both scenarios. Clearly, Sean Payton advocates to the former. Russell Wilson will have $85 million in about dead money. That is the most ever for one player. In fact, he will have 2 of the top 4 seasons of dead money based on 2024 this year, $35.4 million, which is 4th all time. Third was Aaron Rodgers, who had $40 million of dead money in 2023 for the Packers. Second was Matt Ryan, who had $40.5 million of dead money for the Falcons in 2022. And now Russell Wilson in 2025 will be at $49.6 million of dead money for them. They gave up a ton of picks. They are now paying a ton of dead money.
And players.
They gave up picks to get Sean Payton as well, and that didn't work out at all, at least not with Russell Wilson. So this is a team that is in, I think, a tough spot. Now, what's crazy to me about it is Russell Wilson, who is admittedly, we know is a little bit of a strange bird, do you see his thank you letter?
I did.
So he singles out a couple of individual players.
Mm-hmm.
He singles out, the fans, the city, some people in the staff, the cafeteria, all of that. Nothing coaches, owners, GM,
no.
Nothing.
No, I can't imagine.
No Jerry Jeudy either, I noticed, right? Cortland Sutton got some. Sutton got some shout-outs.
No, I think it was the whole thing I don't understand. Like, he was actually decent this year.
Yeah.
He was decent. Like, you brought Sean Payton to coach him. At least that was the conventional wisdom.
Correct.
You have very few assets because you've given so many things up.
More still hot.
I don't understand what the plan is here. I really don't. Unless they're going to fire sale.
What I don't understand is how you can survive this as George Payton.
I don't either.
So you made the trade, one of the worst in NFL history now, for sure, based on what's happening. Number 2, you gave up a lot of assets for Sean Payton, and it just doesn't feel like they're a team in a division with the Chiefs and with Jim Harbaugh now linking up with Justin Herbert, and the fact that they actually have assets in LA. Doesn't it feel like their aiming point is to be 3rd place in their division?
At best.
Right. So,
yeah. I don't know.
How is it not worth it? Why would you rather pay him to not play?
That's right.
Than it would be to just pay him to play?
I don't know.
And he played, like we said, he was
at fine.
A fairly solid level.
Yeah. I mean, it's no, I don't. There was just a personality thing that didn't work with him and Peyton. That's plainly obvious.
Yes,
that part existed. No, it's a wild thing. And then I saw in the Athletic this morning that Pittsburgh, the Athletic reporters, and Diana Rossini was on this as well. Pittsburgh is not interested in Justin Fields. They're not interested in Kirk Cousins. They're not interested in Russell Wilson. Like, who leaks that out? Like, why would they not? Really?
So then, who are they interested in?
Pickett and Rudolph, Mason. You're going to run that back?
They're still saying that?
I don't know. But that was in.
Where did you see that yesterday?
This was the Athletic reporting from this morning. I read that, and Diana Rossini was on it. That they're not interested in acquiring any of these quarterbacks. I don't know. I guess good.
Good for us.
Good for us.
Yeah, I don't.
What's
want
the best landing spot for Wilson?
I would have said Pittsburgh, honestly.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
if there's reports this today about Cousins going to Atlanta.
So Minnesota maybe, and you have Justin Jefferson, you got Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
You've got a good offensive scheme built in.
But do they want that? Do they want to? I don't know what Kwesi's trying to do there. I don't know what the operation is.
I mean, you put Russell Wilson on that team, it does feel to me like at least you're competing for the division and certainly a playoff spot in the NFC.
I agree. But then why not just keep Cousins?
Tampa. If Tampa decides to go a different direction.
Speaking of that, in the last 44 seconds, they've tagged Antoine Winfield. Baker Mayfield will be a free agent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he must not be getting the money that he thinks he's due from them. I'd find it hard to believe that anybody would pay that to him on the open market.
No, who would be the teams? I mean, it's the same teams we talk. It's Raiders, Patriots, Falcons.
Like if we're just being objective about it, he would have to be I think you'd be fourth ranked out of Cousins, Wilson, Fields, him.
Yes.
Best third ranked.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I don't know. So that's all fairly interesting. Today is the reason it's happening. Today's the deadline for NFL teams to use the tag on players whose contracts are set to expire. The Chiefs used theirs on L'Jarius Sneed, T. Higgins last week, Brian Burns.
Yep.
The Chris Jones part of this in Kansas City leads you to believe that they're going to work on a long-term extension there.
Yes.
What do you have?
There's 2 more franchise tags over the last 20 minutes.
Go.
The Buccaneers placed it on
I already
Antoine
did that,
Winfield
Uno.
Jr.,
Who
and
else?
then the Ravens placed theirs on Justin Madubuike.
Okay.
Which makes sense. Madubuike played phenomenally well in his contract year, and I think he had 11 sacks. And we're going to talk Ravens later on in the show, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about their offseason, their free agency, what it all looks like with the Ravens reporter Luke Jones.
Saquon Barkley, free agent.
Yeah.
So Barkley's a free agent. Henry's a free agent. Eckler. Swift.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs. Right?
There's some good running backs.
That's
Jacobs
a
is because
Pollard
Jacob was
too. Tony
yeah.
Pollard.
Pollard was
he fell off a
he
little
was
bit.
tough last year.
Doesn't Saquon feel like it's Cowboys? Doesn't that just scream Jerry to sign Saquon?
Oh yeah.
That just feels
Saquon, Jacobs, Henry, Pollard, Eckler, Swift, Zach Moss, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary, who played very well for Houston. That's the top. There are 9 good running backs out there.
Yeah.
And this isn't a great running back draft, but again, paying running backs has not proven to be smart.
No. So, but some of those guys are difference makers. Like Eckler's a difference maker. Saquon
Certainly
can
in
be a
the right
difference maker in the right system. And with health. Could be for sure. All right, you were curious about this last note on here?
I'd like Eckler to go to Houston.
Yeah, I think CJ would like that too.
Yeah, I'd like that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, last note on here is in college football news, Arch Manning is the most notable name to opt out of NCAA 25 so far. I don't get it.
All right, here's what I think happened. I think they have Cooper, his dad, has done everything in his power to give Arch the most natural, normal college experience. Like he had a very 1990s recruiting. Like he'd go on visits. He didn't make a big stink about when he was signing. He just put a statement on Twitter. In fact, his only post on Twitter was, "I'm going to go to Texas." That's it. Okay. So you go out of your way to say, "I'm just going to be a normal kid, normal kid, normal kid, normal kid." And then he only does one NIL. He only has one NIL, and it's with Panini. And he does a Panini endorsement for NIL, and he donates that money to charity. So doing all the things right. What I think is crazy about this story is it was reported by Anwar Richardson, who's a writer on the Texas Beat. How did that information get to him? What was their motive of getting it to him? They said it is because he's just going to concentrate on football. How would being in a video game prevent you from concentrating on football? So to me, they overplayed, and now he's getting crushed for not being in it.
Yeah.
Whereas if he just would have been in it, taking the $900 in the game, that's a win. Like they just overplayed this. They overplayed trying to make him look like a normal kid who just wants to play football.
A normal kid would want to be in the game.
Would want to be in the game. That's correct.
That would be the most normal thing to do is to want to be in the game.
I just think
I
really
wonder,
overplayed.
here's what I think. I think he hasn't played.
Yeah.
So his ratings probably, how good could his ratings be?
Oh, that's valid. It could be.
And so maybe they don't want his name on
to be a 75 or something.
crappy
76
ratings as
overall.
a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Maybe. I think they just I think they're going out of their way to make it seem like all it is about is football, and they're just overplaying it. You don't think so hard.
Well, to me though, and we said before, I'll just repeat it again or reiterate it. You want to be normal?
Yeah.
You're in the game.
Be in the game.
Every kid would be like, man, I can't wait to be in a video game. They have me in a video game.
Of course. First thing the boys do when they get a game is they build themselves.
That's right.
That's the whole thing. All right. AB from the Combine coming up next. Listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Don't miss Billy Joe, Rod Stewart together for the first time ever. It's Friday, September 13th. It's at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Tickets are on sale now. Visit clevelandbrownstadium.com/Billy and Rod 2024.
Billy and Rod 2024.
It's Billy Joe, Rod Stewart together for one night only.
One night only.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
Thank you.
Here's AB from the Combine last week.
Talked about
You're down.
we were asked about the changes the last couple. Consistency obviously is something everybody would love to have, but how important is it to get fresh ideas, kind of change things up a little bit?
Yeah, I think you always want some new perspective. Like I think that's healthy in any organization. We'll always pride ourselves on trying to stay ahead of the curve and not remaining stagnant. That won't mean that we won't have some foundational things that we believe in, whether it's how we build the team, how we play, or how we run the operation. But at the same time, we're also not going to be afraid of making alterations if that's what we think is necessary.
Sorry, Andrew. Going back to the tackles, I'm sure all three of them will want to start. So how do you balance that if all three of them are back and healthy and on the roster?
No problem to have, Dan. So, I mean, tackle's a position we'll always invest in. It's just too important. We're O-line snobs. Honestly, my focus is on building the roster and making sure the guys get healthy. We're 6 months from playing, so
I mean, going through all the injuries you guys did at that position last year, did that just kind of reaffirm how important it is to have depth on that line?
Absolutely.
I assume you used Callahan as a sounding board when it came to offensive line acquisitions, player changes. Where do you go from here without?
Yeah, so, Tony, I think I've mentioned this before. We always, we take a collaborative approach in terms of how we build the roster. I've never been a part of a good organization where personnel and coaching didn't support one another, whether it was building the roster or on the field. So that'll really continue. And I would say this, Andy and Roy, in and of themselves, they've been excellent in the personnel process so far. I think they're really good. Obviously, Bill is unusual. We will miss him. He's rare. He's one of, honestly, my favorite coaches that I've ever worked with. But at the same time, life does go on, and we have a good process in place.
Andrew, how important is it to you to have a veteran backup quarterback, even if Joe finds another opportunity? Is this a high priority?
Quarterback will always be a high priority for us, from 1 to 3. What that room looks like as we get into the summer, that I'm not sure yet. It'll largely just depend on who's available and at what cost.
Do you fully expect?
Let me get Scott.
Yeah, sorry.
Andrew, after 4 years of doing this and then coming off the playoff season, does your approach heading into free agency change at all? Is there a tendency maybe to be less aggressive than you felt you had to be in previous years?
Honestly, Scott, it's probably more about where we see the roster currently. That's more what will dictate the approach as opposed to where we ended last season. If you remember, when we were in 2020, we made the playoffs, but we were actually still pretty aggressive in free agency the following year because we had a fair amount of work to do with the defense. I can't say that I think we're necessarily going to have that level of volume with the team currently, but things really do change from week to week. But so I can't say.
Are you comfortable with the amount of salary cap room you allocate to offensive line? You're in the top 5.
Yep, very happy with that.
We will continue that?
Yeah, we will be. So let me back up. So number one, we like linemen. No surprise. We like linemen. We will, at least as long as I'm the general manager here. Our investment in those positions will always be high. Now, I will qualify that with the way we think of investment isn't just necessarily in terms of cap dollars. If we invest high picks in there, that may not show up on the, let's say, the cash balance sheet, but that's a pretty significant resource that we're putting into the position group. So over time, as you look at the offensive line room, whether it's in terms of picks or dollars, that will be one of our higher resource position groups.
Do you fully expect Deshaun to be a full participant in the offseason program in terms of being able to, or is it kind of contingent on what you see once he's able to start throwing?
This is what I'll say about Deshaun. He's on track, starting throwing next month. I'm not going to get too far out in front of my skis, but we're really pleased and think that he's going to be just fine.
Will you have to redo that contract again?
Not necessarily.
A couple years ago, Anthony Bell became the first undrafted free agent. You went with the Cavs, and then you have Ronnie Hickman and Moody Abate. Have you changed your approach in that, or is that just the individual level?
I think it's probably a little bit at the individual level. That really is a low odds avenue for acquiring a 53-man roster player or a starter. So I think it will kind of a little bit ebb and flow. We like to think that we have a good process that can help us do better than the rest of the industry. But even then, it really is a little bit of a long shot bet. It's a credit to DeAnthony, it's a credit to Mahmoud, it's a credit to Ronnie in terms of how they've been able to position themselves over the past 2 years.
Will you do joint practices again with anybody this summer, and will you be going to the Greenbrier? And if you do joint, who will they be with?
We will be going back to the Greenbrier, and we will be doing joint against the Minnesota Vikings. They'll be coming to our place.
So Berea?
They'll be coming to Berea, yeah. So you guys don't have to travel.
You expect longer stay at Greenbrier?
Probably about the same time, honestly, Tony. Yeah, probably about the same.
Defensive tackle or wide receiver, which is the greater need?
All the above. All the above.
Andrew, when you
Good try, though. I appreciate it.
when you evaluate your wide receivers, obviously you've got to do that. You've had your franchise quarterback for 12 games. Does that make it difficult to evaluate kind of how they fit together?
Maybe to a degree. Maybe it increases the degree of difficulty, but I don't know that I would say that it goes from easy to difficult. I think every roster deals with moving parts and injuries and fluctuations, and that's part of our job to assess that.
Andrew, what was the process like for you letting Bill go to move on to Tennessee?
It was tough. I mean, look, I think all of us realize that it's pretty unique for a situation where, father gets to work with his son in the NFL. But at the same time, trying to balance the fact that, really just pure in I'll use the term since I'm so cold and calculating that way, the best thing for the organization would be for Bill to be our offensive line coach. But that's one of those moments where, some of those decisions go beyond, go really beyond football. Like, that's just kind of a really special moment for Bill and Brian. So we're happy for them.
To that point, I asked you up front about the cold and calculating part. How did that become a part of your philosophy? Like, did you ever earlier in your career find yourself thinking too much of your roster decisions in terms of, numbers and that sort of thing?
I wouldn't necessarily say so, and I don't know that any of us truly know till we're actually in those decision-making seats. But I wish I had a better answer for you, to be honest.
I know you got a bunch of free agents, but Zadarius might be the most high-profile one. How did you think he fit last year, and is he a guy that whatever you're talking to, you'd like to see come back?
He fit really well. Really pleased with his production. He was awesome in the room. We really loved having him around, and how all those pieces fit together. We're still looking.
Why do you want?
Let me go.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I'll go back.
To go back to the tackles with DeWine, I mean, obviously made really nice progression as a rookie, but when you have a rookie like that who has a season-ending injury, like, what are the roadblocks potentially to, make sure that progress keeps going, especially now with new position coaches?
One of the things that we did, and I think it's a credit to our player development function, we really just kept him, once he came back from the surgery, we kept him engaged as if he was still playing towards the end of the year, because we didn't want him to give back the progress that he made as he was preparing to be a starter. Because you see that with young players. It's almost like, I have young kids, when they go to summer break, if we don't do any reading or we don't do any math, they take a step back from what they're learning. So we kind of took that approach. In terms of like the off season and progressing into next year, we feel pretty good about the plan that he'll have in place during the off season. Andy and Roy, they're excellent teachers. They're excellent coaches. So there's probably a little less concern in terms of that.
Why did you submit a proposal to extend the trade deadline into November?
Yeah. So a couple reasons. We really had 4 goals in mind, Tony. Number one, we think as a league, it makes sense to give teams the most flexibility as long as possible to have the best product down the stretch run in the playoffs. Number two, we wanted to make sure that we could maintain the competitive integrity of the season, so you don't get into, like, let's say, player dumping late in the year. Number three, we wanted to retroactively correct the fact that the trade deadline never moved when the season expanded to 17 games. And then really number four, if at some point in the future the regular season expands to 18 games, we wanted to be proactive in terms of the positioning for the trade deadline. One of the things that we found, Tony, I'll touch on 2 parts. You're probably getting more than you bargained for here, but I'll touch on 2 parts here. If you look at us compared to the other major sports leagues, if you look at their seasons by like calendar days or games played, baseball and basketball, they have the trade deadline at when 65% of the games are played. Hockey's at 78%. Currently, we're at 45%. Our proposal would move it to about 55% of the games played. And oh, by the way, over the last 10 years, the earliest that a team has been eliminated from postseason consideration has been week 11, and that happened in 2014 and 2016. And if you even look at the last 3, 27 or more teams are actually within 2 games of a wild card spot. So we felt that was like the sweet spot where we could add additional flexibility, we could be proactive in terms of how we're thinking about it, but it could also be at a time where teams are still competitive as they thought about the current season.
Can you think of a GM who would be against it? Why hasn't it happened?
You'd be surprised.
Really?
You'd be very surprised. You'd be very surprised. I can't either. I feel the same way, Tony, so I may need to bring you to the annual meetings.
Is that something that will get voted on at the meetings?
It's probably to be determined. Like, there are probably enough within the committee process. There's probably more discussion to be had on on the overall topic, and whether it goes to the floor, that'll probably be determined as we get closer to the annual meetings.
What's their argument against?
You know what? I'm probably not the one to speak on it because it'll be dripped in sarcasm. So I'm just going to hold it.
Do you guys have an opinion on the kickoff, the hip drop, and maybe the touchback rule?
Yeah, so hip drop, it is something that we think is pretty dangerous and something that we need to figure out a better way to handle, within the game. And then the kickoff rule, I think everybody agrees that what we saw this past year isn't the ideal aiming point. I know the special teams coordinators have been putting their heads together to come up with with a good solution. I anticipate that that's something that we'll see, kind of in the next several weeks. So that's a little bit of a TBD.
Is it a formality to pick up the 5th-year option of Newsom?
Happy with Greg. As you know, I don't comment on
Sometimes
contracts
you do.
or. Oh, when did I?
I think when last year with who'd you pick up last year? Or Njoku. Go back to Njoku.
No. Good try though. It was a good try.
Andrew, with Deshaun coming off of the shoulder injury, do you have to dial him back at all in terms of the keeper game, the run game, his mobility, or will you just let it rip and do whatever Ken and Kevin want to do it?
More the latter.
Not to ask too deep into the contract situation, but for guys like Maurice Hurst who have the potential to come back, how important is a guy like that who is a big locker room guy who really created a culture for themselves?
Yeah, Cam, we really do. I was just really happy with the week that we had this year, and in an ideal world, we'd like to bring everybody back. I think we all know the practical realities of it, that we do have to make decisions and trade-offs, but it won't be for lack of effort. If a guy was productive for us and a good fit, we're going to try and make it happen.
Andrew, just one question about Grant. I mean, I know it sounds like he came close to playing in that postseason game he wanted to, but how has he been this offseason? And then just the jump he took this year in Jim's system, like how much more do you think he can rise to that ceiling?
He's great and fully cleared, which had happened a week earlier, and he's perfect for this system. He can match tight ends. He's really good in the run game. He's an excellent blitzer. He brings a ton of toughness and energy and swagger to our defense, and we're happy to have him for the next 2 years.
The offensive line coach from Philadelphia, was his contract up?
I'm not going to I'm not going to comment on.
How did you do them?
I'm not going to comment on. I just don't think it's appropriate.
If you guys have to start the season with 2 road games, do you fully embrace, what that all might mean, and are you cool with that if it happens like that?
Absolutely. They tell us where to play.
30.
I was going to.
Last one here.
You were asked about the Brazil game at the podium, but what goes into the process of? Is there a lot of communication between you, Philadelphia, or Jacksonville, or whomever, with regards to international games in general, not just specifically Brazil?
So this is truly I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to comment on that, so I will get back to you on that if it is. Okay.
You're up.
All right, there's AB from the Combine last week. Coming up next, we continue our series around the AFC North, behind enemy lines with the Ravens. What are their plans for the offseason? We'll find out. Coming up next, you listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, sports betting partner, your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, second hour of the program, the Rolling Stones Hackney Diamonds Tour on Saturday, June 15th, Cleveland Brown Stadium. Tickets are on sale now. Visit clevelandbrownstadium.com/Rolling Stones for more information. We continue our tour around the AFC North in the advance of free agency behind enemy lines to preview the division champs, your Baltimore Ravens. WNST Ravens reporter Luke Jones joins us on the Twisted Tea hotline. Luke, thank you so much for taking the time. I guess let's start by looking back before we look forward. The season ends in Baltimore. Obviously, the goal was to win the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs do that instead. They were the 1 seed, obviously. What was the feeling in the immediate aftermath of the season, and where is kind of the fan base and the organization now looking back on 2023?
I mean, I think it's tough because you have such a fantastic regular season. I think they were the consensus best team in football at the end of the regular season at 13-4. Home field advantage, first time that the city of Baltimore had hosted an AFC championship game in over 50 years. And Kansas City was perceived by everyone to be down, right? So it felt like it was shaping up to be the Ravens' year, and they come up short. They come up short at home, and I think the feeling now is kind of a sense of not that they're going to fall off or not that they're going to not remain in the mix in the AFC, but I think there's a sense of how do you get over the hump? And it's probably not terribly different than what Buffalo's been asking going up against Kansas City the last few years in January. But I think there's definitely a sense of the Ravens having some unfinished business at the end of the year. And I think what's tough about it is so many coaching changes with losing some staff members to promotions elsewhere, and also this not being the best salary cap picture with a lot of free agents. So there's definitely a sense of some changes, not panic, but definitely some disappointment on the heels of coming up short in the title game last year.
Let's talk about those coaching staff changes on the defensive side. It was pretty much a rating, right? You kept the linebacker coach. He's now the defensive coordinator. But other than that, Anthony Weaver's gone to become a defensive coordinator. McDonald is gone. What do you make of kind of what this defensive staff is going to look like, and how does that change, if at all, what they've been doing defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to change what they want to do defensively very much. I mean, Zach Orr, if you recall, was actually a pretty good linebacker for the Ravens about a decade ago, playing next to C.J. Mosley, had to retire because of a spinal condition that was discovered after his third season. He's been on a fast track. It's not stunning that he's become a defensive coordinator, but I think the Ravens were hoping, to maybe hold on to Mike McDonald a little longer than 2 years, as they felt he was one of the best-kept secrets in the NFL. But that became pretty apparent late in the year that wasn't going to happen. He was going to get a head coaching gig. So I think they're really hoping to maintain as much continuity as they can. It's not as though Zach Orr is going to completely change the system in the same way that Mike McDonald didn't completely overhaul the system when he replaced Wink Martindale a couple years ago. But as you guys know, whenever you're talking about a new coordinator, you're going to have some different fingerprints. It is someone who has not called plays as a coordinator at any level before. So, it would be naive not to think about the possibility of there being some growing pains, and then that's not even getting into some of the attrition that they're probably going to experience from a player standpoint with some of their free agents. So, I think it would be tough to expect the Ravens to lead the NFL in scoring, takeaways, and sacks once again, but you guys know this division. You know the Ravens. I mean, over the course of the last, going on 25 years now, if there's something you can expect from this team, it's to be really good defensively, even if they're not necessarily going to be the very best, and maybe they will experience some drop-off. I still think that's going to be a really good defense.
Luke, we were when we saw the hiring of Monken, because we had him over here, and we were well aware of his abilities, and we said, "Oh God, not there, right? Like he's too good." And how did that come together? How quickly were you noticing how well that was all working, and what can they build on offensively as great as they were a year ago?
I mean, that's a great question. I think the thing that really struck me about Todd Monken, and I wasn't familiar with him other than what you guys just said, obviously what he did in Georgia and what he had done in the NFL at some previous stops with some mixed results. But I think just how malleable he is, how easily he can adjust to his personnel. And I think, he said over and over, it's like, look, you have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. That's a heck of a start right there. So I think he was personable. I think he expected a lot out of the players, but I think that he did it in a way that earned their respect very quickly. I think now it's just a matter of kind of taking it to the next level. I think it's no secret that under Greg Roman, even with the success that the Ravens had offensively, they were much more of a run-first team. Well, let's be clear, they still run the football and run it very well. They finished first in the league in rushing offense this past year, but they became a much more modernized, pro style, for lack of a better description, of a passing game. Not being this team that had to depend on its run and kind of just throwing when they needed to. It was kind of, not the opposite, but they had plenty of games where they came out throwing and being aggressive and passing on early down. So I think it's really just a continuation of that, and just Lamar Jackson becoming more and more comfortable with having more on his plate pre-snap at the line of scrimmage and adjusting protections and things of that nature that he did some of in the past but wasn't doing nearly as much. So I think they feel that they're in a good spot systematically speaking. But again, as I alluded to with some of the free agents and some of the roster building challenges they might have, they're right now they're both starting guards are set to become free agents. Their offensive tackles are veteran players with injury concerns or compensation concerns. So I think the biggest question for the offense as a whole is the offensive line. But I think they're very pleased with where what Todd Monken brought to the table, the relationship he had with Lamar Jackson, and just a much more balanced approach that he brought to this offense after being so run-heavy under Greg Roman in previous years.
Talking with Luke Jones, WNST Ravens reporter. And Luke, you mentioned free agency and the salary cap situation. We just got some news today that Justin Madubuike signed the franchise tender, or they tagged him. $22 million is the number there. You look at last year, and obviously a breakout year for Madubuike. He had 13 sacks to lead the team. Jadeveon Clowney, the former Brown, 9.5 sacks. He is also a free agent. Kyle Van Noy, 9 sacks, also a free agent because he was brought on that one-year deal, and he played great. You think about, just quickly do that, add that up. We're talking about 31.5 sacks potentially gone. Madubuike, obviously, it looks like he'll be back, but will be costly. How do you expect them to navigate that with their pass rush?
It's definitely going to be a new their Pro Bowl inside linebacker, Patrick Queen, who doesn't put up these monster sack totals, but he's a fantastic blitzer from that position. And, he's been a guy 3.5, 4 sacks most of his career every season. So it's going to be a challenge. And I think that's why they felt so compelled that they couldn't let Madubuike hit the market. And I think it's unsettling from the standpoint of, this is a guy who had a breakout year. His previous career high was 5.5 sacks. But, the pressures, the quarterback hits, all those different metrics that kind of go beyond just sacks still look so good. And as you guys know, when you're talking about interior pass rushers in the NFL, they're unicorns. You can find guys that can be successful coming off the edge. So I think they viewed him as a foundational piece, and they're going to try to get a long-term deal worked out here at some point prior to July, I suppose. Hopefully much sooner for their sake. But it's going to be a challenge because they have Odafe Owe, the former first-round pick, had 5 sacks this past year. He had a nice season, but is he ready to become the primary guy coming off the edge? They have David Ajabo, a second-round pick from 2 years ago, who was really highly touted coming out of Michigan, but injuries and hasn't been able to get on the field. So I think in a perfect world, they'd love to have one of Clowney or Van Noy back, if we're speaking in realistic terms. But both of these guys are guys that they signed late. They signed Clowney in late August. They signed Van Noy when the season had already started. Unless you're throwing a boatload of money at them, I think it's going to be challenging to get them signed at a number that you're comfortable with at any point soon. So I think it's really going to be a challenge for them. But this goes back to their system. And again, it's not Mike McDonald, but Zach Orr is going to do some of the same things. They're such a heavy simulated pressure team. They're going to view this through the lens of they're going to try their best to try to bring some of those veteran players back. But I think they also have a lot of confidence that they can create pressure. And, with Madubuike kind of being an anchor for their interior rush, I think they feel that they can blitz and sim pressure and do lots of things to confuse opposing quarterbacks to try to manufacture that. But it goes back to what I said. Probably not in the cards for them to lead the NFL in sacks once again, if we're being realistic, looking at some of those free agents they're going to lose.
Who were some guys, because they're going to have to get under the cap, so they're going to have to move on from some people, and I was just kind of looking at, Marlon Humphrey with a post-June 1st would save $12 million against the cap. Tyus Bowser would save $5.5. That feels kind of likely. Morgan Moses, 5.5. Patrick McCarry, 4.3. Do you expect to see Patrick Ricard, who's it's still valuable, but a little bit less so in the offense that Monken's running? That's $4 million. Brandon Stevens, $3 million. Are they going to have to cut some of the guys that they've been accustomed to having on this roster?
I think that's always a question. Right? Most teams are generally going to release one or two guys. That's kind of how it works. I look at Tyus Bowser, almost feeling that would be a foregone conclusion. He's barely played the last couple of years because of injuries. I think you mentioned Patrick Ricard. To me, you love what Patrick Ricard does, but to your point, as a team that is much more 11 personnel than heavy personnel like they were under Greg Roman, I think at the very least there's a good chance you either see him released and maybe they try to re-sign him, they try to cut the deal, whatever it might be. But I think the most interesting scenario is looking at offensive tackle. I think you look at Ronnie Stanley, who has a $26 million cap number. He's got an $11 million base salary. He's got a roster bonus due. Everyone, I think even at least in the AFC North, is aware of the injuries he had, that horrendous ankle injury he had 4 years ago, and he just hasn't been the same guy. So I look at him, even though that would be much more of probably a post-June 1st would be the best way to release him if you're going to do it, and that you don't get that cap space until June, so it makes it tough. So I kind of look at it through the lens of I could see a scenario where either he or Morgan Moses isn't brought back, and that could create a little more salary cap room. I also think it's possible with Stanley, because I don't think anyone's paying him $15 million on the open market after the injuries he's had the last few years, where they could work out a pay cut, give him some incentives to try to make him whole. But, yeah, you just kind of – the only guy that you named that I can't see it with would be Marlon Humphrey, which you kind of look at that deal. There'd be – okay, you could save a little bit on – being a post-June 1st, but it'd be so much dead money that you'd endure. And, this is a guy who's only a year removed from being a Pro Bowl corner, had some injuries this year. So I don't really see him being in that conversation. But those other names you just mentioned, I think it's entirely possible. But as I alluded to a little bit earlier, they already have both of their starting guards set to become free agents. I don't know about you guys. I don't love the idea for any team, unless you're talking about a team that's really bad, that's potentially looking at replacing 3, if not 4 starters on the offensive line. That's a unsettling idea, especially protecting your 2-time MVP quarterback.
Well, that's the thing. We're kind of all in this, and obviously the Ravens got closer to the mountaintop than we did last year. But, Luke, we're all chasing this unicorn down in Kansas City who's won 2 in a row after trading their most dangerous weapon, and we're all of these teams in the AFC, it's all now's the time. You need to go win right now. All of your players are in their prime. Your best players are in their prime. Your rosters are primed. So there's this tremendous – and the Ravens are at the top of that boat. Look at Buffalo's in for a really interesting offseason. All of us are kind of in this same spot. Cincinnati in the division with T. Higgins. They feel like they got to win right now with this group, because how long can you keep it all together? Baltimore's no different. We're all just chasing 15 down in Kansas City.
Yeah, and Andy Reid, who's about to, sounds like he's signing a contract extension as well, despite some rumors of his retirement the last couple of years. It's tough. And you guys can certainly relate to this as you talk about this for a living and trying to bring something intelligent to the conversation amidst lots of fan frustration. That's understandable, quite frankly. But, I hate to be so flippant about it, but I kind of look at the Ravens and say, it's why I said at the beginning of the conversation, it's kind of what else can you do other than you're on that stage where you're facing Kansas City in Baltimore in the AFC Championship game, and you got to play better. And look, Lamar Jackson had a phenomenal season. He was a second, MVP second time in the last 5 years and almost unanimous. Patrick Mahomes outplayed him in that game, and you can look at some other factors as well. Todd Monken, maybe the game plan, not running the ball enough. All these different factors you can look to, but you just kind of look to it and say, okay, well, we can talk about A, B, and C and make these moves in March and April, but if it comes down to you're in the arena. You're in the conference championship game going up against 15, as you mentioned. You just got to do it. And I think it's so frustrating because, as I'm sure you've joked about as well, in the AFC, it was waiting out Tom Brady to finally ride off into the sunset for years and years, and then lo and behold, Patrick Mahomes takes over immediately in that spot. So it is frustrating because, I mean, any team that has a talented young quarterback, and certainly Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson's still young, if he can find what he was in Houston. And you say that these are all still young quarterbacks and have plenty of years left, but the problem is, well, Patrick Mahomes is, I think a year and a half older than Lamar Jackson. I mean that's what we're talking about here. He's a year older than Lamar. So it really is a sense of, especially with these teams, any team that has a quarterback that's making a lot of money, you guys know, it doesn't make roster building impossible, but it makes it much more difficult. And then you look at a year where Kansas City is down, at least perceived to be down, and then they just flip the switch in January. There's definitely a sense of, I have to think, fans and media do it. I'd have to think behind closed doors, these teams, executives and coaches and whatnot, at some point they just kind of throw their hands up and say, what is it going to take to beat this guy?
Yeah, it's exasperating. Absolutely. Luke, this was great. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for your time and your insight today.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.
All right, that's Luke Jones on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the Ravens roster build as we stay behind enemy lines around the AFC North in advance of free agency. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. part of one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Join Next Gen STM presented by Ticketmaster, the official waitlist to your Cleveland Browns. Being a Next Gen STM is the best chance to become a season ticket member in future seasons. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/NextGenSTM to reserve your spots today. You were going over this when we were talking. Luke was great, by the way. We were going over kind of the Ravens and their roster.
Yep.
We're kind of all in this spot of like all of us in the AFC of trying to track down Kansas City and what are the components you need to be able to do it. I thought Kansas City would go in there and win. Some of that was because I was burnt by them in Buffalo previously.
Yep.
I thought maybe this, and I'm like, I'm not picking against them again, and that ended up working out okay. But it did feel like Baltimore had the components this season to get him.
Yeah,
like if anyone's going to get him, it's at home, and they couldn't. And if you are them, and all of us are in this boat, Burrow's the only one that's gotten him in the postseason.
Correct.
So Burrow and Brady. That's it. So, like, for the rest of us, that's what we're chasing down. And if you're Baltimore, it's like, man, that was as good as we can be. You take a look at this free agent list of theirs.
No, they're in trouble.
Man.
Well, I just mentioned it. So they had 60 sacks as a team last year. Their top 3 sack getters are all free agents. Matabike, now he's on the franchise tag. Clowney, 9.5. 9 for Kyle Van Noy. They're not going to be able to bring back both of those guys, likely one. And the chances we've seen, unfortunately for us, Clowney coming off of a 9-sack season, the next year wasn't quite as good. So you may have gotten his best season. You got Van Noy's best season in a while as well. You're going to Patrick Queen, 1 interception, 6 passes defense, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 3.5 sacks, 133 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 6 quarterback hits. Patrick Queen is really good. You can't pay him and Roquan Smith, so he's as good as gone. So their defense is going to look completely different. And then offensively, Gus Edwards had 810 yards and 13 touchdowns, free agent. J.K. Dobbins, it just has never worked out for him, and maybe his NFL career is over, which would be very, very sad. Free agent. Bateman hasn't been good. Odell Beckham, for $15 million, they got 35 catches for 565 yards and 3 touchdowns for $15 million.
That was one that in the moment we said, he got what?
Yeah, that made no sense.
The only way that made sense was if that is what Lamar wanted. They were trying to appease him before he signed. That's the only way that one made sense.
Rashad Bateman has been a bust, 32 for 367-1. They got Zay Flowers, who's a stud, and Mark Andrews getting older, coming off of injury, still I think a stud. But they're people who are going to handle the ball are going to be different. They need weapons.
Yeah,
Zay's a great one. I think he's going to be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. I think next year he's going to be even better than he was this year, 77, 8, 58, and 5. But yeah, they have a lot of things to do. And we went through even on the cap. All of a sudden you could say, oh, well, we save $15 million. You'd have 11 in debt if you cut Ronnie Stanley. But then you're also cutting Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
And the other guys you want to get rid of are Morgan, Moses, and McCary. So then your top 3 tackles are gone. I don't think you can pay Zeitler. So now your top 3 tackles and a guard could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough way to operate. Geno Stone is a free agent, and he had an excellent year. Geno Stone, no big deal, 7 picks this year.
Mm-hmm.
You pay Matabike $20 million. You're paying Roquan Smith a ton. You're paying Marcus Williams a ton. You're paying Marlon Humphrey a ton. He hasn't even really been healthy for you. They're not in a great spot, it doesn't feel like, because part of the big question for them is, and it's a great question to have, he is awesome. And for whatever reason, though, Lamar Jackson, when it comes to playoff time,
yeah,
he's not the same player that he is in the regular season. Regular season for his career, 65%, 125 touchdowns, 45 picks, quarterback rating of 98. It was 103 in the regular season last year. And then you go to playoffs, 57.4%, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's thrown at least a pick in every single playoff run that he's had so far. Quarterback rating 75.7.
Yeah.
And so at some point, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you have to wonder, can we get over the hump? You're stuck in it because he's too good to not have. We talked about last year. There was a reason they were willing to move on from him.
Yes.
And he was MVP again. I mean, he was the MVP.
He's 2-time
this year.
MVP.
2-time MVP. And basically
one of them unanimous.
4 years as a
4
starter.
or 5 years, yeah.
He's been a starter for 4 full seasons. And
There
5
is-
full seasons, he's been the MVP twice.
There is a – this is going to – I hope this doesn't come across – I don't mean this as negative. There is a James Harden-ish thing to Lamar from the standpoint of – and I'm not talking about now Harden. I'm talking about when he won the MVP and he was a triple-double guy for Houston. Or you want to use Westbrook if you want to go cross sports in the analogy. But there is something about regular season, it's a problem to play him on a week-in, week-out basis because they play in a way that's different. He's a different threat than everybody else. He is so elite. But when you have time to prepare and you can point towards him in the postseason, it's been different. That same thing happened to those two guys. I mean, that happened to Harden in the postseason, happened to Westbrook in the postseason. Like, there is an elite level of having to deal with it every night that makes it hard, but is it something that works in the postseason? And we talked about it with them going into that game against Kansas City. Like, they were not going to be able to chase.
No.
There's one way that they can win, and they have to front run in order to do it. And when you think about them, think about the crossroads they're at, Buffalo's at, the Chargers are at. And the damnedest thing is, I mean, we're going to have some tough decisions. Cincinnati's got tough decisions. Kansas City made their tough decision and won 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
They traded Tyreek Hill, and they've won the last 2. So
and they changed their style. They evolved kind of like the Patriots.
Yeah.
They played – this was Mahomes kind of manage the game, make big plays when you have to. Chris Jones in this defense, these corners locked down, be a lockdown defense, and then run Pacheco.
Yep.
And be physical. And, that's what they did. And in the postseason, you got to give Kelsey his due. Postseason Kelsey was unbelievable.
Yeah. But we're all kind of changing on the fly.
Yes.
To chase them. They've
Constantly.
already changed.
And they're evolving.
And they just –
yeah.
So it's really hard to track them down. I knew that this was going to be a big offseason for Baltimore, but until you see it like this, you don't really understand how much change they got.
Like
this
Kyle,
doesn't even have all of it.
Van Noy's not even on there.
No.
I mean, yeah, they have got it's tough. Ironic.
Here's one thing they get, though, buddy. They always get guys to play there,
of course.
sometimes for less.
Yep.
It has an it factor place. Guys love playing there. They love playing with Lamar. So they will get guys to replace some of these cats, but it's not going to be a player-for-player exchange.
No, I agree.
Just can't be. Can't be.
No. Not a chance.
All right. Coming up next, a little better or worse on a Tuesday. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, now live in Ohio. 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, Nathan. On Friday,
Hey, Bo.
September 13th, Billy Joel and Rod Stewart. Yeah. They're gonna
Together?
They're going to be together.
That's never happened before.
Astute. It has not happened before.
I don't think it'll ever happen again.
This will be the first time ever.
And it's just one night.
It's one night only. You can buy tickets.
What?
You can buy them.
What?
Yeah,
I can give them money.
You give them money.
And they will give me the opportunity to see something that's never been seen before.
And maybe never will again. This could be, it's a one-off. It's on a Friday.
It's on a Friday.
It's on a Friday.
You can sleep in on Saturday.
Sleep right in.
College football.
Live.
First second NFL Sunday coming up right after.
It's on September 13th.
Friday
Great
the
weather.
13th.
Friday the 13th.
That's it. This isn't. You know what's freaky is how good of a deal this is.
It's an unbelievable deal.
That's the only thing freaky to me.
Now I'm going to tell you how to
How do I get it? Where do I go?
I know you're curious.
Where do I go?
You go to clevelandbrownsstadium.com,
Okay.
and then you go /
Okay.
Billy and Rod 2024, and they're going to give you more information. I don't know how they could have more information than what I've just given.
Billy and Rod 2024.
Got it. That's right.
Billy and Rod 2024.
It's one night only.
One night only.
All right, time for a little better or worse. Hello,
What up?
Uno.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello, Uno. Oh, man. That's funny.
Great, Uno.
That was great, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really feel like I should get tickets now to Billy and Rod.
Well,
you
they're
and
available.
everybody else. You and we need about 60,000
They are
others.
available.
Yeah. Come on in. Water's warm.
Today we rank the top 25 offensive free agents. This is via Jared Dubin and CBS Sports, although the list is tumbling because people keep getting franchise tagged and re-signed. So a couple people on this list have been have already come back to their original team.
Okay. All right.
Starts though.
Let's go.
Number one, who's not going back to his original team, that's Kirk Cousins.
Well, we don't know that, do we? For sure.
As of right now, he has not been tagged. The deadline is at 4.
Well, they weren't going to tag.
They weren't going to tag.
They were going to try to redo a deal for him.
All right.
Probably
So
what they
we should. I'm going to do because like Billy Joel and Rod Stewart can come together for one night only,
One night
have
only,
a shared
September
moment.
13th.
Why
Billy
can't we do better or worse and combine it with thing or not a thing for one segment only? So not only will we say if we like where they're ranked, then we'll say are they a thing or not a thing for the Browns?
I like it.
I thought you would.
I like.
I was excited.
I
I was excited to say that to you.
I like it.
Kirk Cousins.
Here, I'll do that part of it. You do the better or worse, and then I'll lead you into the thing or not a thing. And I'm not just going to limit it to the Browns. I'm gonna go ahead.
You do extra things.
Yeah. We'll make it. We'll do the things. All right. So go ahead.
The best offensive free agent, Kirk Cousins. Is he worse than this or just right?
Not just right.
He's the most important.
Most important.
If he switches teams, that changes potentially who can win things in the NFC.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins reporting this morning that Kirk Cousins could end up in Atlanta and that Arthur Blank has ordered it so much so that he has potentially looking at real estate in the Atlanta area. Kirk Cousins on the Atlanta Falcons, thing or not a thing?
Thing and play out, and I think they're the favorites to win that division.
Yeah. It was the only hitch in the giddy up for us on Fields to Falcons was unless Cousins hits the market.
Yep.
Once they made the coaching change.
Yep.
If they would have stayed Arthur Smith or if they would have stayed in that world, if they would have hired Monken, Fields for sure. But once they made the change that they made, and Zach Robinson going to coordinate that offense, and it's an amalgamation of what Sean ran in L.A., then they see it, throw it.
Yep. At a high level. And
At
he
a
can
high
do
level.
that.
And he can do
Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson.
Weapons.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, he's never been somebody who's taken less, but because of that, potentially he could if he cared to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that he's going to have to, but no,
That's part of
he's the biggest game changer on the market if he hits it. If that's the way it works.
Yep.
Next.
Number 2 was Mike Evans.
He's off the list.
He's been re-signed. Number 3 is Michael Pittman, and there are just reports coming in now that he's going to get franchise tagged by the Colts.
'Kay.
Seeing that from ESPN's
Nah,
Jeremy
I don't think he
Fowler.
was a thing for us anyway.
Number 4 is former Cowboys offensive tackle Tyron Smith. Higher or lower for him being number 4?
How old is he? Tyron Smith.
I mean, I'm fine with it. To me, this is hard to rank. What's
33 years old.
Okay.
The more interesting question is where, how, why. with some of these guys. I mean, he's probably the best of the tackles, but like, if you're asking me right now, I'd rather have the guy who's number 8 on this list, Calvin Ridley, because that's just where my mind's at. I'm looking with orange and brown colored glasses.
Calvin Ridley to the Cleveland Browns. Thing or not?
I'd like it to be a thing.
Could it be a thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it would
what is his number? How does that work?
You would be doing it saying this is probably your last year with Amari. You would ask Amari to lower his number. He'll get paid out anyway, but ask him to lower his number this year so that you could have Ridley, Amari, and you would have Elijah. And then in the draft, that frees you up to get either a tackle for the future, because then you're going to be dropping potentially $25 million off the books at the tackle position this offseason, and allows you to have that tackle that would be starting next to DeJuan Jones in 2025.
Yeah. We have to either I do think it's really either D tackle or receiver. Don't we? One of them we've got to do in free, maybe both, but one of them you got to get a dude in free agency. You can't go into the draft. Like, don't you think? I think we got to have another weapon offensively.
I think you could draft the weapon. I mean, it's supposed to be a historically great receiver draft, and that is a premium, expensive position that you can get cheaply because it would be a draft pick. But we've got to hit on it, which we
got to hit on it, which we've struggled with that one position.
I could see us do something like. Let me throw this out at you.
All right, go ahead.
Drafting a guy and then signing, say, someone we were interested in last year, a McCole Hardman.
Yeah.
So he gives you speed, he gives you return, he gives you jets, all the stuff that Marquise Goodwin was supposed to give you. He's coming off of, up and down year. He did catch the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then you have a rookie with him. So you'd have a speed guy, draft a rookie that you think is just the best receiver, period.
Yep.
And then you add it to the mix, and eventually you just have to you got to hit on the draft receivers. I still think Tillman can be good.
Yeah, I just wanted more, and we just didn't see enough from him. And David Bell came along late, but he isn't a game wrecker.
No.
So, like, you need when you think about tracking down in Baltimore, we just went over them, or Cincinnati. There's going to be teams on the come. Obviously, that Houston team's going to be coming. I think Jacksonville will be better next year. Like, all of those teams coming around. I just don't think we're dangerous enough offensively.
Yes.
There's not enough to fear. And I think you need to have
Ridley could help that.
Ridley would
Hollywood
help that.
Brown could help that.
He would help that. Yeah,
Hardman could help that because he gives you he has been a productive player in this league.
If Goodwin was what we thought he was going to be in
if he was what
camp,
he was
then you're good.
April, May. Yeah.
Yeah, just the illness was the issue there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Uno.
Number 11 on the list is the first running back. That's Saquon Barkley. Higher or lower for him? In a sense, is he the best running back on this market, or is there one better?
I think he's the best back on the market because if he stays healthy, and he has not really been able to do that, he is able to run it and catch it very effectively. Eckler also can do that. Derrick Henry, much more of a runner. Josh Jacobs, much more of a runner. He's still young-ish, Saquon Barkley. I think he's probably the best running back on the roster.
3 of those guys were first-round picks, 2 of them high.
Yeah. Eckler, I'm surprised Eckler, for example, on this list is behind like a Tony Pollard. He's 29. I know he's small. He didn't have a good season last year, but he is.
Their team didn't have a good season last year. They had injuries at receiver all over the place. Like, they couldn't do anything. They were wildly incompetent. Like, Austin Eckler on, I don't even know the team. Like you mentioned, Houston, that would make all the sense in the world.
Oh, my God.
Like, that would be fantastic for them. Yeah, I think, and then Saquon's the one who could make the biggest difference in a short window. Like him, and I still like Swift a lot.
I'm surprised DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift's better than Pollard. He was excellent last year. I can't believe he's not.
Do you think he's just a punk?
No, they loved him in Philly.
Because, like, Detroit didn't give him any run. Philly, they didn't give him the run that I thought. You'd watch the games. You're like, God, just keep giving him. There was a game early in the season where, like, he was untackleable. And then it just doesn't continue. I don't know.
My guess, if I was Philly, I would want to keep him. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. He's not going to be insanely expensive because there's just running back. The market is just what it is.
It's flooded.
Flooded with free agents, and then it's going to be flooded with the draft again. I'm trying to get on here and see what's going on.
Go ahead, Uno.
We'll go to some of the offensive linemen on the list. We've got Nwenu from the Patriots at 14, and then Dalton Reisner at 16, and Kevin Zeitler at 18. Is that the right order, or should Zeitler be higher, Nwenu be lower for these three offensive linemen?
Thing or not a thing? Uno asking us a 3-for-1 on guards in the higher, in the better or worse segment.
Not a thing.
Not a thing. Uno.
Not a thing.
Sorry, Uno. Sorry. Not going to participate in that.
That's
We've
okay.
got 2 great guards, so
Yeah.
we're good. So we can't worry about that. Next, give us the next one.
Number 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield. Higher or lower for Baker?
Where would you? We had him 4th
amongst those quarterbacks. Yeah, like Russ would be higher than him.
This was made before Russ was technically a free agent,
Before he was
so
released.
you could include him on this.
DeAndre
Now.
Swift, real quick, by the way.
Cousins, Fields, Russ, Bake.
Yes. DeAndre Swift, 1,049 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.6 yards a carry, 39 catches, 214 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, he was a Pro Bowler. I mean, he's good.
Baker hitting free agency is pretty wild. Because if you're the Bucks, now that that's happened, you're not going to tag him. Like
he's not being tagged. Mike Evans got paid.
Right.
Let's see what their cap situation
I mean, they could do something where they could bring Russ in.
Why wouldn't you bring Fields in? Why would they be a team that wouldn't bring Justin Fields in?
Well, he can throw the deep ball.
Yeah, and you've got Mike Evans, and he could end up being your guy for a long, long time.
Who's the coordinator there?
The OC?
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy that was the OC left to go be the head coach of the Panthers, right? Dave Canales?
Boy, somebody took that job.
Liam Cohen was named.
Never
the
heard of
Tampa
him.
Bay
Nothing on
Buccaneers
that.
offensive
I got
coordinator.
nothing on that, Coach.
So they have about $20 million in cap space currently. This does not have the Mike Evans deal in it. He is not listed. So they had $26 million for Mike Evans, so they're above the cap. Chris Godwin, if they cut him post June 1st, saves $20 million. They're going to franchise Antoine Winfield. That's $17 million, so that's on there. Carlton Dave, they've got some big numbers, dude. Chris Godwin, $27 million cap number. Vita Vea, 21. Carlton Davis, 20. Tristan Wirfs, 19. Winfield Jr., 17. Jamel Dean, 15. Shaq Barrett, 14. Russell Gage, 13. They're going to have to get, he's gone.
Yeah. Next week's going to be pretty interesting. Good job at you, Uno.
Richard LeCount is listed as somebody.
Rich LeCount, let's
LeCount
go.
On the Bucks.
So much more to come. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Did you see the Caitlin Clark at Iowa? They played Ohio State in women's basketball on Sunday. Did $3.6 million. Which
that was the record. Was that the record setter?
It was no. Their tournament last year was more, but it did more than NBA opening
no, I meant
night.
for her, didn't she just set?
She passed Pistol Pete.
Yes,
all time
against the Buckeyes.
Against the Buckeyes.
That's
and her final home game, 3.6, more than NBA opening night, more than Wemby's debut, more than Duke Carolina.
I have a feeling if she gets all the way to the championship, that championship game might outdo the men's championship game.
I believe you have that correct.
Which is,
I believe
in
you
the
have that
90s,
correct.
that would have been unfathomable.
No chance. But it would depend on who's in the men's. Like if it's blue blood, then you got a chance.
Sure.
But tough. All right, the next level is next. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.